Welcome, hackers. Today we're going to take a look at a spell that you may have all heard of before, Booming Blade. We're going to discuss the best way to use it and compare its damage output to other builds. But first, let's take a look at the spell itself. Booming Blade is a cantrip that costs one action, and it reads, you brandish the weapon used in the spell's casting and make a melee attack with it against one creature within 5 feet of you. On a hit, the target suffers the weapon attack's normal effect and then becomes sheathed in booming energy until the start of your next turn. If the target willingly moves 5 feet or more before then, the target takes 1d8 thunder damage and the spell ends. This spell's damage increases when you reach certain levels. At 5th level, it becomes 1d8 thunder damage and 2d8 when they move. Both damage rolls increase by another d8 at 11th and 17th. So basically, what this spell does is it allows you to make one melee attack with your action and add some extra thunder damage to the attack. And if the target moves, it will do additional thunder damage. Now, Treant Monk over on his channel has done a video that compares Booming Blade to multi-attack. And he did a really good job of breaking that down, so I'm not going to break that down here. I'll just leave a link to that video in my description, and you can check that out after you've watched the rest of this video. But basically, it boils down to multi-attack is almost always better than Booming Blade, with a few edge cases. So, we're going to look at how you could use Booming Blade on characters that don't get multi-attack. Almost every character class that can take Booming Blade is a caster of some type, and most of the time they have better options that keep them out of combat and able to do damage using spells. So it's primarily the weapon users that would use this spell. However, as we've said, most classes have multi-attack if they're melee based, in which case multi-attack is probably better. There is, however, one exception to that, and that is the rogue. The rogue only gets one attack, and its bonus damage comes from sneak attack. However, sneak attack and Booming Blade can work together. So let's take a look at how a rogue character could get Booming Blade. Well, there's 3 ways that can happen. The first one is with the High Elf as your racial type. The High Elf gets a free cantrip of their choice at character creation. You can simply choose Booming Blade and start off the game with that spell in your arsenal. This works out well with the rogue because the High Elf also gets a +2 bonus to dexterity. The next way is by choosing the Arcane Trickster subclass. If you take this subclass, you'll get to pick a cantrip, and you can take Booming Blade, but this won't come online until 3rd level. Now, you don't get a lot of extra damage with Booming Blade before then anyway, so this is a very viable option. The 3rd way is with a feat Magic Initiate. With Magic Initiate, you can take the Booming Blade, but that may cause you to pass up other feats you may want, or adding more to your attribute. Now remember, this spell does extra damage on a hit, but also does extra damage again if the target moves. Now the rogue's cunning action really plays into this well, because a rogue could move in, hit with Booming Blade, and then use their cunning action to disengage and move away. It's possible that the target they hit has a ranged attack, but maybe its primary attack is a melee attack, or maybe all it has is a melee attack. Then it has to choose whether it's going to move and take the damage, or whether it is going to just throw something at the player. So let's take a look at the comparison between attacking as a rogue with sneak attack and then adding Booming Blade into the mix. You can see on this chart here that Booming Blade doesn't add anything really until the 5th level if the target doesn't move. If the target does move, then the damage output increases dramatically over just attacking with sneak attack. For the purposes of this chart, I assumed that the rogue had a +4 to its dexterity bonus and was using a rapier, which is a D8 weapon. The average damage at 1st level is 12 for just attacking with the sneak attack. Adding in Booming Blade, which does not get a bonus to the original attack yet, is also just 12. If the target moves, though, it's 16.5 points. That's more than a 30% increase in damage if the target moves. Once you get to 5th level, you get to add a D8 damage to your original attack. And if the target moves, it takes another 2d8. So potentially, this is another 13.5 points of damage, when normally you would only be doing 10.5 points of damage. So this more than doubles your potential output if you can get the target to move. The disparity between the damage continues as you level up, all the way up to 20th level, where a standard attack will do 43 damage, but a booming blade attack plus causing the target to move would do 75 damage. And that's a 58% increase in damage. That's a pretty substantial increase in damage for a cantrip. So as we stated before, there are several use cases for having booming blade on other character classes. However, I think the rogue is really where it shines the most. If I were to do this, I would probably go with the high elf option so that I could have it from the start. And that way I could pick any subclass I wanted and still have all my feats available to use. And then that would allow me to have a greatly increased amount of damage on my standard attacks. Of course, this is all assuming that you want a rogue that's going to be in melee and not one that hides back in the shadows and fires a bow and arrow. I hope that you found this video informative and have a better understanding of how you can take advantage of Booming Blade. If so, please consider liking and subscribing and hitting the notification bell so that you'll know when I have more videos. And until the next video, keep on hacking the dungeon.